Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Mina. In this video, you are going to learn how to draft a basic sleeve. So if this is what you're interested in, please stick around. Let's dive straight into the video. We will be drafting a basic long sleeve first before we move over to a short sleeve. So I've gone ahead to fold this paper into two and I created a starting line. From the starting line, I came down by the length of my sleeve, which is 24 inches. So measure from your shoulder down to your wrist. Whatever you have, go ahead and mark it. Then I rule a line across the 24 inches that I just marked. The next step is to input my elbow measurement. Mine is 13. I'll come down by 13 inches and mark. Then I'll use my straight ruler to rule a line across. The next step is to determine our cap height. That is from the shoulder tip to our armhole level. To get this, you have to divide your bust circumference by 12. And whatever you have, add 1 inch to it. My bust circumference is 34 divided by 12. I have 2.8. Then I'll add 1 inch to it, making it 3.8. Then I will just approximate it to 4 inches. That 4 inches is what I'm going to mark. So from the shoulder line, I'll come down by 4 inches and mark. Then I'll rule a straight line across. So this line now becomes our bicep line. Okay, on this bicep line, instead of taking my armhole measurement on it, what I will do is to divide my bust circumference by 6 and I will add 1.5 to it. The first one we divided it by 12, but this one we are dividing our bust circumference by 6 and we are adding 1.5 to it. It's just the same method you use to achieve your chest line, where you have to divide your bust circumference by 6 and you add 1.5 to it. Then you take it from your shoulder slope down in order to get your chest line. The same method you use to achieve your chest line, also use the same method to achieve this measurement. Or you can just input your armhole measurement on that line. So whichever one that you are comfortable with, just go ahead and use it. So I'll go ahead and mark where I have 7.1 on the bicep line. From that line that I just marked, I'll use my stretch ruler and connect it slantly to meet my starting line. So go ahead and do the same thing. The next step is to place my tape on that slanted line that I just marked to measure what I have. Then I'll fold my tape into two to determine the midpoint. Fold my tape as shown to get the midpoint of that line. I'll go ahead and mark the midpoint of it. From that midpoint, I will come in by 0.25. From the midpoint, I'll come in by 0.25 and I'll also go out towards the side by 0.25. So I'm using that line as a guide. The 0.25 I'm marking inward is going to help me to achieve the front side of my sleeve, and the one I'm marking outward is going to serve as a guide to achieve the back side of my sleeve. So just follow it up, you understand what I'm trying to explain here. The next step is to use my curve ruler to connect from the starting line to the 0.25 points that I marked inward. So make sure you adjust your ruler to sit on that starting line and also the 0.25 line. Using a pencil for this is better, but for clarity's sake, I'll have to use my marker pen so you can see it clearly. And then I'll flip my tape inward to connect from the midpoint down to this point as shown. I'll go ahead and blend these points to look smooth. The next step is to connect from the starting line to meet with the 0.25 that I marked outward. I'll also flip my ruler inward, then I'll connect from the 0.25 to meet with this other point as shown. So this first line is the back of my sleeve, while the second line is for the front of my sleeve. The next step is to input my round elbow measurement on this elbow line. Mine is 11. I'll go ahead and divide it by 2. Then I'll mark what I have. Dividing it by 2, I have 5.5. So I'll mark 5.5 there. On the full length, which is also my wrist, I'll go ahead and mark my round wrist measurement. Mine is 8. Divided by 2, I have 4. So I'll go ahead and mark. The next step is to connect what I have on my elbow line to what I have on my wrist as shown. So I'll go ahead and connect my wrist circumference to my elbow circumference. So the next step is to connect from my bicep line to my elbow line as shown. Note I did not include any seam allowance to this. That is because we are just drafting a basic block, okay? A basic block is a pattern you can just draft like without any seam allowance. When you want to use it, you can just go ahead and place it on your fabric, transfer it and add your seam allowance like preferred seam allowance to it and cut, okay? But when I'm drafting out the shot, I'll show you how to include seam allowance to your basic block. After cutting it out, the next step is to open it up as shown and trim out the front. So we have to trim out this other side. So we have the front and the back. When cutting your basic sleeve, ensure your pattern is placed on fold, okay? So I'll go ahead and extend these lines and label the lines. So that part is the back of my sleeve and this side is the front. Here is my elbow. Here is the wrist. To add your seam allowance to the side, you can just fold it like this to add your seam allowance. But for the sleeve head, since the back and the front are not the same, you have to open it up as shown and add your half-inch seam allowance for joining, okay? Next is to draft a short sleeve. This paper is placed on fold. I've gone ahead to create my starting line. From the starting line, I'll come down by the length of my sleeve, okay? So I'm going to use 8 inches for it. You know, this is a short sleeve. So I'm using 8 inches as my short sleeve. I'll go ahead and mark the line across. So the next step is to get our bicep line. We are also going to divide our bust circumference by 12 and add 1 inch to it. So mine is 4. I'll go ahead and mark my 4 inches. Starting from the sleeve head, I'll come down by 4 inches and mark. Then I'll use my straight ruler to rule a line across as shown. On this bicep line, instead of inputting my armhole circumference, I'm also going to divide my bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 to it, just the same way we did when we were drafting the long sleeve. So mine is 7.1. I'll go ahead and mark it there. Then I'll use my straight ruler and connect from that point to meet with the starting line as shown. So go ahead and mark your slantly to meet with the starting line. The next step is to measure what I have on the slanted line. Then I'll fold my tape into two to get the midpoint. At the midpoint, I'll mark what I have there. So from the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.25 and mark. And I also follow that same line and go out by 0.25 and mark. The next step is to use my curve ruler to connect from the starting line to the midpoint. Then I'll flip my ruler inward to connect from the midpoint to this point as shown. So we are done creating our front sleeve. The next step is to create our back sleeve. From the starting line, I'll also use my ruler and connect from that starting line to meet with the midpoint as shown. Then I'll flip my tape inward again to connect from that midpoint to meet with this other end. So the next step is to input my round sleeve measurement on the full length. Mine is 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I'll go ahead and mark 6 on that point. Then I'll use my straight ruler to connect it to this point as shown. So I'll go ahead and add my seam allowance to this. I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance to the side. I'll mark 1 inch there. I also mark 1 inch on this other part. You can decide to add more than 1 inch to it, maybe 1.5 inch to it. So it's based on preference. So I'll be adding 1 inch to mine. I'll use my straight ruler to connect the points together. Then I'll use my curve ruler to blend this point as shown. So to fold the end part of your sleeve, you can also decide how many inches allowance you want to add to your sleeve. Okay, so you can decide to add 1 or 2 inches or more. It depends on you, okay? So I will not be adding anything to this part. I'll just leave it like that, but I just wanted to show you how you can add allowance to the side. Then I'll go ahead and cut it out. Note I'm cutting on the second line, okay? Then I'll go ahead and open it up like this to trim out this part. So you have to pay attention to where you are cutting so you not make a mistake. So I'll go ahead and trim out the front part of my sleeve. So the other part is the back while this side is the front. So to add joining allowance to your sleeve head, you have to open it up as shown and add half-inch round, okay? So I'll go ahead and demarcate the front and the back with my straight ruler and I also extend this line as shown. So we are done drafting our short sleeve and our long sleeve. This is our long sleeve. If this tutorial was helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and also leave a comment in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in my next video. Bye.